My name's Mike. I'm an alcoholic. And, well, nothing normally strokes my ego more than a bunch of people and give me a microphone and say, talk about yourself. Half of me is a scared little boy that wants to hide in a cave, and the other half of me is listen to all the wonderful things I have to say because I have everything figured out. Of course, if I had everything figured out, I wouldn't be here. My sobriety date is February 12th, 2009. It is not my first. Hopefully it will be my last. And it's been a heck of a journey, that's to say the least. I'm also a connoisseur of fine methamphetamine, but that's a whole different meeting. How do I know I'm an alcoholic? Okay, this is how I truly fucking think. You know the chapter 3 list, all the bullshit we do? Okay. Drinking beer only. What my brain hears is snorting meth only. Because of the handful of times I was able to drink socially with my pinky up and shit, where there's still booze in the glass 20 minutes later, is when I was on speed. So I need to schedule 2 narcotic to drink like normal people, like my sister and shit, who'll drink like half a beer and go, maybe I should stop. What the fuck? I don't get that. Limiting the number of drinks, why? Never drinking alone, that's the best kind. Never drinking in the morning, well, football days, you know, that's okay. Never having it in the house, that's where I kept it. I was not a bottle hider because I hid my drugs. I did not hide my booze because I want to know how much I have at any given time. What time is it? Do I need to go back to the liquor store? I had my liquor cabinet, so I knew how much I had all the time. Yeah. Never drinking during business hours. Well, occasionally you might take one of those airplane shooter things, you know, but not get too out of hand. Drinking only at parties. Life was a party. I'm not going to do the scotch to brandy thing because I like scotch. Drinking only natural wines. I tried Thunderbird just to be able to say I tried it. It wasn't bad, but you're also talking to a guy who at the age of 16 tried to shoot rubbing alcohol because I ran out of vodka. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Shot glass, Kool-Aid, isopropanol. It didn't work. I was only able to get a sit down. Taking a trip, not taking a trip, with or without LSD. Reading inspirational books, yeah, 10 years of witchcraft, I did that. Going to health farms and sanitariums, I did that in sobriety and when I was fucked up. Accepting voluntary commitment to asylums. Mine was not voluntary, it was on order of the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Department. So I think it's a fair thing to say that I am an alcoholic. My brain does not comprehend the idea that the room is spinning, I've thrown up, there are consequences, maybe I should stop. That does not occur to me. And that's the insidious part of it. Now back to my normie sister, about 6-7 months ago, she like bought this foo-foo fucking beer at Sprouts or some shit. Like raspberry wheat girl, you know, whatever the fuck. She takes a sip of it and goes, it sounded like it would taste better. Don't tell my husband. And she goes and pours it out and pours herself a nice shot of bourbon. I still would, even if I don't like it, I'm still going to drink it. I just don't get the normal people. I drink for annihilation. That's the purpose. The social thing with the pinky up that I mentioned, yeah, that's all well and good, but I didn't ever have fun when I was trying to control it. Did you? I didn't ever control it when I was having fun. Did you? Now, I initially got sober when I was 20, in 1998. And I stayed sober for 4.5 years. Now, I was mostly drugs at the time. I was drinking alcoholically, but I didn't know that. You know, they teach you all that stuff in the rehab about, you know, how the alcohol affects the brain and yada yada. But my spirituality took kind of a downward spiral at about the, I don't know, 1.5, 2 year mark, something like that. I got a sponsor that, taught me some very irreputable things. I didn't know any better. I was 21 at the time. Something like that. Eventually, the moral of this story is I became my own god. Now, where are the steps? Oh, here they are. When you're your own god, step 2 don't work very well. And to make things worse, I didn't know that. So, needless to say, now this sponsor that taught me the shady things, he said near beer was okay at like the 3-year mark. So the last year and a half of that 4.5 years is a little shady. Eventually, somebody offered me a glass of wine. And it says in the book, you are not going to have the power to say no, it has to come from a higher power. Well, I just told you who my higher power was at the time. That glass of wine took me out for 5 years. Right back to the drugs and right back to all the bullshit. And eventually, things got bad enough to where, I think there's like a half-ass AA attempt in there for like a month, maybe a month and a half, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, things got bad enough to the point where I did some, well, God did something. He gave me a mulligan is what he did. The reality is, this is AA, I mentioned the drugs. Drugs are a part of my story. I'm not going to get too much into it. But the bottom line is, I can now say I'm grateful for the drugs because they got me in here quicker. If it had just been booze, I don't know if I'd be here yet. And that's kind of where my brother's at. He's not really a druggie, but because he's still got a car and, blah, 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 and, seems like it hits the men more than it hits the women in my family. I don't know. But the point is, when things were bad enough, I went back to, now the first time I was in rehab, I was in the hospital. I didn't have any money or, grandma didn't pay the bill that time. But I just started going to meetings again. And that was like around December of 2007. And like, the day before I turned 30, I smoked some pot with my brother. Now that is the last time I've done an illicit drug. I took Vicodin when I was 2 months sober because I had an IND procedure. And it is weird when you've taken drugs the right way, you feel guilty. Because I felt high as a kite. It was weird. When I'm not fucked up, Vicodin has like a speedy effect on me. It was really strange. And that ate me up for a long time. I was high, I don't count, blah, blah, blah. But no. If you're not doing pharmaceutical dyslexia, 4 every hour, that shit. If you're not doing that and you're taking the pill the way the doctor says you're supposed to take it, you're not doing anything wrong. But at about the 13th month mark, Grandma was sick. Now, it wasn't about Grandma being sick. It was about little boy Mikey at the age of 30, whatever. Who's going to take care of me now? So my friends decided to alleviate my stress because that year I spent sober in 2008 sucked ass. I couldn't get back into my former career. Everything sucked. Well, witchcraft, paganism, and being your own god, probably, that whole step 2 thing again. Now, again, I was too stupid to see this then. I now know that just don't work for me. If it works for you, cool. It bit me in the ass. So at the 13th month mark, my friends decided to take me out for a couple of drinks. And since my program sucked, I was just dry and going to, a few meetings a week. Instead of going to my home group that night, I went to this place called Pete's at the Beach, which is on like Bellflower and PCH. Now, when you're my weight and you haven't drank in 13 months, 3 shots and 3 beers will cook you pretty good. At the end of the night, I had to get home. How many of you fellas have ever heard of Huntington Beach? Yeah, the DUI capital of this state. So here's what happened. I got in my car and started driving back to Newport on PCH. Now this scared the shit out of me. I only drove drunk a handful of times in my life because I'm a house drinker. I like yelling at the fucking TV, drinking more scotch, and saying that if all these fucking Washington assholes would do things my way, there'd be peace and there'd be no nukes in the Middle East and everybody be singing Kumbaya and shit. I don't like drinking when I'm out because I don't have the false sense of control. So, long story short, I'm parked at the fucking red lights and shit like at Brookhurst, and the fucking white lines are still moving in the middle of the street. It really fucked me up. I drove high all the time. I always obeyed all the laws and shit because you don't want to get pulled over and have your dope taken away. Somehow I made it home and then decided I was hungry. And I got back in the car to go to Jack in the Box that I probably could have stumbled to. Got my hamburger, fucking ate it, threw it up when I got back home. How I didn't get pulled over that night is beyond me. I woke up the next morning hungover. And it kind of occurred to me, okay, last time this happened, it took me out for 5 years and I made it back half dead. Instantly, the thought was, I guess I gotta go back and start over. And I'm glad it was instant, because if I have time to think about shit, I will talk myself out of it. So, I was hungover, I drank on a Wednesday, I was hungover on a Thursday, stood up as a newcomer that Friday, and I've been sober ever since. And in the last, 13 years, a lot has happened. Almost everything I've ever wanted in life has come true. I'm married to a woman who drives me crazy. I didn't want the drives me crazy part, but apparently we think very, very differently. I make sense. Yeah, well, again, she's an alcoholic as well. Basically, long story short, everything I ever wanted out of life, I got. There's one thing I got that I worked for when I was still drinking. Other than that, everything happened in sobriety, whether it was that stint in my 20s or the stint now. And life is good. I am not God. I know that now. So I've kind of gone full circle with that. I still try to act like God at home because I like to tell my father-in-law and my wife how they should live in their house. Now here's the alcoholic insanity and sobriety, by the way. I'm still doing it 6 years later. And if it wasn't for their grace and mercy, they would have kicked me at the curb years ago. But I am in fact married now, and that's one of the things I kind of always wanted to happen. And that's kind of cool. Now here's where it gets a little bit interesting. At the age of 35, I wasn't working, and I was watching news all fucking day, every day, and it was just fucking horrid. So I decided to get the bright idea and go back to school. Now, I'll explain the irony here in a minute. I thought about it, and then eventually one day I did the work, and I started off taking 2 classes. I started in the summer, so I took like art history and political science. And I just took one step, I took one class at a time, and one step in front of the other, yada, yada, yada. I took an intro to Soc class, and when we got to the criminology chapter, it interested me a lot, because I'm like, hey, this is me and all my buddies. I didn't know we were delinquents. I thought we were just fuck-ups, right? So I didn't really have to study that hard, that chapter. I just had to know a couple of fucking words for what I already was. Long story short, I stayed on that route and ended up with a bachelor's degree in sociology with a criminology subplan and a master's degree in sociology. Now here's where it's ironic. I used to be an undertaker. So I started with death, then went to life and did this whole full circle fucking thing. Now here's how I can prove to you God exists. I hate people. And I majored in a major that's about people. I can't stand fucking people. If I knew how to be fucking social, I might not have fucking drank myself in here. I don't do people in life very well, and yet my degrees and shit say that, like, I know people. Well, it's ironic, isn't it? I haven't done much with it. Currently, I work in an epoxy place making, like, glue for airplane parts and shit like that. When I first started working there, some of the stuff smelled really neat. Now it doesn't even fucking faze me anymore. But it is interesting, and, you know, this whole journey has been spiritually based for me. Because I've played with the dark, and I can now accept the light because I'm not afraid of it. I cannot speak for any of the rest of you. But the light used to scare me because there's darkness and there's familiarity in the darkness. Maybe that's why I drank as much as I did. I'd rather be in hell because I know what's coming than be in heaven when I don't feel I deserve it. It's ironic, but I see a few nodding heads. You get it. I have gone from somebody who in high school, sophomore GPA started with a decimal point, and that's when I was still trying. I had severe learning disabilities. I should have been in the dum-dum classes, but I wasn't. And I was in a very accelerated school district. It was not a good combination. To having nothing more than an A- in a master's program. How did that happen? It wasn't me. I just did what I was supposed to do. And I would not have been able to do that if it wasn't for sobriety. I do not know where I would be without being sober. But at the same time, I know exactly where I would be. Because I'm prone to other substances and shit like that. And if I don't have other substances, I will just drink like a fish as long as I am awake. The bottom line is, if I were to drink again, I would not be lucky enough to die. I have rationalization, I have justification, I will make it your fault, and I will keep doing it. I will talk down on you from the gutter, and I will keep doing it, and I will keep living that way, and I will see nothing wrong with it. And God help you if you're in the way of me in that scotch or bourbon. I ended on bourbon because scotch is $20 a bottle and bourbon is $11. Just simple economics, I guess. But the bottom line is, if it wasn't for God's grace, I wouldn't be here, and if I wasn't here, I wouldn't know what God's grace was. So for me, it's symbiotic. And we don't care in Alcoholics Anonymous what religion you are. But as a Christian, I'm going to say it this way. The Bible and the Big Book, without both, I have neither. Because without this program, I think I'm God. I still do that at home. I explain that shit to you. But without God, I wouldn't be here. So they work hand in hand for me. They really do. I can't have one without the other. And I can have sobriety without meetings and shit, but it'd be dry and it'd be kind of shitty, and I'd be telling my wife what to do more than I already do. See, this is me sober. I'm this much of a dickhead now. Fuel me with liquor, it's 10 times worse. And that's what I'm able to do here is grow. These steps helped me to grow, and they help me to continue to grow because I do not notice my character defects when I'm drinking. Oh, I'm being self-centered and self-righteous today. Look, when I am drinking massive amounts of scotch, it does not fucking occur to me how to better myself today. It just doesn't seem to come up. But being sober, it does. And through doing the step work, I'm able to spot check myself a little bit better. Okay, it's 2 o'clock. I've been self-righteous like 6 times that I can think of. What's going on? That's why we have the spot check on page 86. And it helps me to be better. It is really hard, and probably my biggest default is being able to practice this program at home. That is where I struggle the most, I'm not going to lie. But I try. When I'm drinking, I don't even try. We can grow here. We can have peace here. And you can have a God that is not yourself. And that has, at least for me, given me something to strive for. Now, if I could only get out of my damn way and drop the self-righteousness and the conceitedness, I'd be even more peaceful now. But you know what? Where I'm at today is a lot better than what I was. And if this is as good as it gets, that's cool. You know, I have dreams and I have aspirations which are accomplishable today. But the bottom line is, without this program, I don't know where I'd be, and I know exactly where I'd be. And I like where I'm headed. And probably more importantly, I'm a future tripper and I'm a dwelling on the past kind of guy. It's very hard for me to be in the moment, but from time to time I can be. And that's cool. So whatever you do, I don't care if you've got 20 years or 20 seconds, we can help each other. I mean, in the last couple of months, twice I can think of, this is real, if you've got at least a few years, this one really fucks you up. When a dude with like 70 or 80 days says something and he obviously gets something, and you at 13 years are going, I still haven't fucking figured that out. It's happened twice in like the last 6 months. But then again, me at 13, I might have said something to some dude with 40 years that he didn't get. You know, we all help each other here. That's the point. No offense, I love y'all, but if I could do this myself, I would not be here with you. I don't like people. I'm afraid of them. That's why I spent so many years with dead people. That doesn't scare me. They're easy. And with that, thank you for letting me share.